All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring him on. Former hosts of Redacted Tonight, because America has a free press and we just shut down news networks, whole stations, and scrub all their videos from the planet because we're all about democracy and freedom of speech. That's what America's all about. Here he is, Lee Camp.
Hey, man.
How you doing, buddy?
All right. How's it going?
Good. Did you feel really good? Like, this is the first time you were late. Usually I'm the one that's late. Where you're like, yeah, suck it, Graham. This is what you get, motherfucker.
I felt amazing. And it was, I knew I was going to be late because I had an itch like right in the center of my back. And I had to find like a good scratching post. So
just try to get it. You can't.
Yeah, it was a solid 42 minutes of this. Yeah.
Oh God, I hope that's the reason. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to just take my time on this.
I'm going to give up one hand of this effort to text Graham that I will be late.
Oh, being on time is not my strength. I'm going to just tell you that right now. It's not. And
I was going to tell you timing's not your strength. Oh,
LeeCamp.com, ladies and gentlemen.
That was an old comedian roast joke.
Oh, for all of your comedy needs, LeeCamp.com, everybody. Skits and bits and jokes like that, folks. Yeah, I've never been good. I got in trouble when I was a kid. I mean, I'd be out playing and like had to be home in time for dinner. I was never home on time, ever.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I wouldn't say I'm a heavily neurotic person, but something about being late freaks me out. I don't like being late to things. Bugs me.
It's funny. I'm super on time. I don't miss flights or show. Like, I'm always on time. I'm always for stuff like that. But I don't know, when there's not like a hard thing about, I don't know. It's I don't know.
You're like flights and shows, important things, but when it's just a dickwad comedian doing political jokes about World War I, then I'm like, why? What loss is there if I don't show up?
When it's like stuff like this that nobody cares about and is pretty sums up the uselessness of the choices you and I have both made. I don't care. I mean, yeah, it comes from growing up truth to be told, it comes from growing up in a house that I didn't really want to go back to. So I just never want to go. I never want to go anywhere. So, but yeah, just bringing the showdown with Graham's shitty childhood. All right.
I thought we were doing a 3-parter starting next week with Graham's childhood, right?
Oh God, no, no, we're not. That's first of all, it would be a 10-parter, and I don't think it'd be fun for anybody, least of all me. So
the jokes would be light, the rage would be heavy. Yeah.
Yeah, there wouldn't. I don't know. I'm trying to figure like what the jokes would be. Just like, and that's why you can all suck it. All right, so if you want to check me out on the road, here are my tour dates. Yeah, it would just be more. That's why I love samurai movies, and I studied that because I just always envision myself with a katana, just like against 100 people, just like, like that's. I hope that's the way I get to go out, man. Just like, all right.
Well, I think I speak for all of us when I say I'm glad you grew up before the age of mass shootings.
No, I've never. And here's the thing. Because I grew up
mass katana-ings is different. Yes,
it's different. I want everyone to have a katana. I would like bring your sword.
It'd be fair. It'd be fair. Yeah.
Even if it's 50 against 1, I'm going to kill a bunch of you before you get me. And you better hope you're not the one, right? I'd just be like, so I'd see in the eyes of the guys who were scared, and I'd go after the bloodthirsty guys first. And after I was like, king, 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 like, who's left? Maybe just put your sword down and call it a day. No, I never would have done the mass shooting. I always thought guns, never liked them. And, I read Batman at a young age, obviously. And in the Dark Knight graphic novel series, there's a famous quote in it where Batman says, guns are for cowards. It's the coward's weapon. So
There you go.
That's what I think. So that's why I'm always like, grab a katana and let's just settle it. You know
Although,
what I'm saying?
interestingly, Batman's what, a billionaire, and I think money is the coward's weapon.
I definitely, since doing the show, a lot of people have sort of pointed out that fact that, he's a millionaire, Graham. And I'm like, I know, but he uses it for good.
In your defense, they were all, back in those days, their alter egos were always either rich or, scientists. There was not a lot of like poor man's superheroes.
There wasn't a lot of poor man superheroes. But anyway, that's why I'd like to leave this life in a 50-1 samurai battle. But anyway, enough of that.
I hope later rather than sooner.
So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Government Secrets, episode 79. Halfway to 158.
Wow, you did the math yourself. Well done.
I'm really good at that stuff. Like basic arithmetic, I'm really good in my head. I can just figure it out like that. So we're going to be doing what would be part 3 or part 4 of World War I.
I believe this is part 4, and hopefully this will be the last, because I'm done with it.
Well,
I feel like the world has spent enough time on World War I.
It's the government secret to end all government secrets, is what it is.
Well, there are clearly places in this where we could like take one sentence of this and go and create a whole episode around what that was. I mean, there could have easily been a 2-parter on the chemical weapons industry in the United States.
Oh God, it's right. It's so brutal. All right, so we'll do my government secret segment number 1. Another fun CIA, not a specific operation. I didn't go to a specific CIA operation. I just went, Lee Camp, to good old targeted killing. There's a whole CIA.
Is that a browser you own? Targeted killing browser app.
Yeah, it is. It's a dating app. Targeted killing. And so Wikipedia has a whole just CIA heinous crimes page. And then I scrolled down into all the assassinations they've done.
But by the way, can I do a quick tangent on Wikipedia? Because we've talked before about how we use Wikipedia because if things have gotten into the liberal history of the world, then it's like even they accept that this is the truth. Recently, so I know a guy who's one of the lower level editors, he's not one of the top dogs, but he's an editor with Wikipedia. So he can edit things, but it's not as respected as those top 500 or whatever. But he showed me what had been done to my page recently. And so besides updating it with the fact that RT America had been canceled, you can see what the guys deleted, and it was done by one of the top editors, like the people that all the other editors are like, oh my God, it was Snuffleupagus, holy crap. And so they don't touch it. They're afraid to go up against this guy because he's one of the big dogs. And basically the guy had deleted most of my life. And of course he could claim, oh, well, it's not sourced well, because what's sourced well in Wikipedia? The only sources they respect are like New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, Fox News, that shit. That's legit sourced for them. So he deleted basically everything like Lee Camp lived in New York City for 12 years, working at the comedy clubs, every night, all that stuff's deleted. And so it just, last I heard, it just basically makes it seem like I'm just a guy who did Russian TV for a few years. And it's like their form of propaganda is like, let's delete him as a full human being and try and just make it be this one thing,
Well, yeah, that's their whole strategy with RT is just nowhere you can't find any of it anywhere. It's gone. It's completely gone. It's like, it's insane to me. Like that this happens. And then they literally just want to erase your life. Like what? You just popped out of nowhere? Like you just whoop, or just created
so
by
it was a Russian, it was a Kremlin made in a petri dish at the Kremlin kind of scenario, and grown into a Russian comedy TV host.
Formed in a Russian lab, Lee Camp.
But this is how Wikipedia works. It's 500. The main editors are 500 white guys or whatever, 100 or whatever, and everyone can't win editing battles with them because they're the most respected. And so you get Wikipedia is largely the white male Western view of the world.
Yeah, of the world, which is why, and again, whenever I use Wikipedia, it's always just say even those guys acknowledge this.
Even they've admitted it. Yeah.
And so their acknowledgement of this. So then at the bottom, I went to where the articles were sourced. And so there's actually an article that came out in, this was in Vice, and the year was, let's see, October 2019. And so CIA-backed death squads are committing war crimes in Afghanistan, report says. So
2019. So, way back then.
Way back in the way back in the day. A disturbing Human Rights Watch report describes summary executions, extrajudicial killings of civilians, and attacks on medical facilities. So this is basically, there was a 53-page report describes the Afghan forces committing summary executions and other grave abuses without accountability during 14 night raids conducted from 2017 to mid-2019. And these are CIA-backed Afghan strike forces, which this is, again, I'm hell-bent on pointing out American war crimes as we sit there watching Joe Biden and the U.S. media say that Putin needs to go to The Hague. It's like, if Putin's going to The Hague, great. Let's bring Biden. Let's bring Kamala Harris. Let's bring Trump.
Let's bring them all. And it's hilarious to watch these people come out. Who was it? Condoleezza Rice was in that interview, and she's like, "Yeah, these are war crimes. I mean, invading a country is a war crime."
I'm missed. Like, I just like, Americans are literally. It's like the government's saying that the Sunday, that day of the week doesn't exist anymore, and Americans are just like, yeah, it's great, it's never existed, it's always, and we're like, no, it's Sunday, we've always had Sunday, it's always been there. And they're just like, no, it's just not, it's just. And
Wikipedia is like, what's your source for that? Because I didn't see it in the New York Times. So
on the New York Times, I think Sunday is a Russian propaganda. So this report, these are not isolated cases. This is by Patricia Grossman, the report's author. They're illustrative of a larger pattern of serious laws of war violations, and some accounting to war crimes that extends to all provinces in Afghanistan where these paramilitary forces operate with impunity. Based on dozens of interviews with residents and civilians, the report focuses on night raids by Afghan forces in areas controlled or contested by the Taliban. In these raids, the Afghan strike forces, referred to by one diplomat in the report as death squads, storm into domestic compounds, questioning, detaining, and sometimes similarly executing the residents.
What could be wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with it. But it's Americans backing, and it's happening in a country where the people aren't blonde hair, blue eyed. So it's not really our problem. Even though
it doesn't matter. And also apparently we could just be there for 20 years and it all counts as a war on what? We were just an occupying force. I mean, in many ways we're killing even more people now that we don't have troops on the ground. Like but still.
Now there's people starving. Yeah. Like, it's just like we went there for 20 years and made it worse for everybody, including ourselves. It's unreal. That Afghan forces had attacked civilians because of mistaken identity, poor intelligence, or political rivalries in the locality. Now, I heard this when I went to Afghanistan for the first time as a comedian in 2004. And the American military was like trying to get the Taliban, that because it's a tribal country, and these warlords who just had some sort of like regional beef with each other would just go, oh yeah, that guy's Taliban. And America would just go, okay, and just bomb the shit out of this dude, even though he wasn't.
Right. The only accounting of this in mainstream media was the Afghanistan papers that came out in like 2021 or maybe or the end of 2020.
2019, 2020, I think, right?
Yeah, 2020. And it said exactly what you were saying, but like another thing they do is they'd pay one of the warlords or whatever to destroy all of the poppy growth in his area. And so he'd take the money and destroy all these poppy fields. But what they didn't find or didn't care to find out at the time was that he also was growing poppy, and he was burning all of the fields of his rivals. And he got paid by the U.S. military to do this. So they were paying drug warlords to burn their enemies' fields and just monopolize their own poppy trade in that area.
And it's like either one of these could be absolutely 100% correct. Either America, the commanding officers were so stupid they didn't even take that into account, which I wouldn't put this past their level of stupidity. Like they work hard, to be this dumb. Like really, like they go to special schools on how to be this clueless and stupid. And
but some of them clearly know because
right. They have to.
Because like Matthew Ho, who is, he's running for office on the Green Party right now, but was in military for years and was, I don't know his exact rank, but one of the higher ups out in the field. And he talks about, you can go read articles right now about how he was given millions of dollars, much of it like in shrink wrapped, just $100 bills in bundles to give out to people in Iraq or people in Afghanistan to help the community. But the only way they charted the success was, did he give it out on time? And it's like, so you couldn't actually do a good job of this. So you go running around handing out pallets of cash, just hoping that it helped something. And of course, I'm sure there was plenty of theft as well, just taking it for yourself.
No.
Yeah, but in his case, it's like, even if he had believed fully in our military's goals and efforts, he still would have been like, we're just handing out cash and that's supposed to help things. Like,
just if that doesn't summarize America's philosophy on anything, just literally, here's a bundle of cash. Do you know where the money's going? No, but I know it was delivered on time. What? Like,
yeah. I was just covering some of the COVID relief fraud that went on, and it's like, this isn't even the 4.5 trillion given to Wall Street. This is like the PPP program. It was like people just, filled out an online forum saying, oh yeah, my business. Oh God, we need the relief. And they would just send them the money. And so there's billions of dollars worth of fraud of just people being like, yeah, that company I founded 4 years ago and haven't done anything with, we need a lot of help. Just send us cash.
Oh, I should have just been, I'm too honest. I should have just like created a fake company. Just like,
absolutely.
Oh, Vegan Guns Inc. We've got 1,000 employees. if I don't get 5 million today, it's
guns made out of tofu. They're wonderful for those of you who believe in letting the animals live.
Yes, it's guns made out of tofu, and we're having supply chain issues, and I'm gonna have to lay people off. So I'm gonna need $5 million today.
This business I run, it's me and my cat, and I have 2 hamsters as well. And I'm thinking I may have to lay off one of the hamsters. And it's really a tough thing for me because we've been close for a long time. So for me to sit down and have that meeting, I'd really prefer if you just send the money.
Just send the money.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming this is forgivable, right? Yeah. Okay, great. So as long as it's a forgivable loan that I never have to pay back ever.
Yeah. It's a loan, but do you really need it? Oh, you'll never check if I don't pay. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Man, I just really wish I should have set up a comedy club in Kabul and just gotten one of these pallets of cash and just said, yeah, I'm going to bring comics over here. And then they just give me, $100 million. And I just like, oh yeah, that club didn't work. We couldn't get the permits.
Dude, the examples in those Afghanistan papers are just wonderful. Like another one was they were paid, they were given millions of dollars that they paid to contractors to build a facility. I don't know if it was a training facility or something in Afghanistan in this area. And once it was completed, they found out it was in an area that was not run by them. So it was like Taliban territory. So they couldn't use it and no one could go there. So they just spent a multi-million-dollar facility in an area that no U.S. troops could go to.
Oh, I hope they put that in like the recruiting brochure. Like, if you join the army, you get these top-rate facilities.
And it's just images of Taliban in the lap pool, just doing some backstroke.
Just filling it full of sand because it's against the Sharia law or whatever they're just doing. Like, pools are illegal.
Filling it with sand, doing backstroke in their sand pool. Yeah.
Oh God, we've got it's such a fine line between dumb and evil when it comes to America. You know what I mean? Like, it's sometimes it's like sinister, calculating evil, but sometimes it's just dummies. Like, here's a blank checkbook, just write checks and do whatever you want, but you got to use black ink. Like, there's always some stupid thing that's like,
it's kind of dummies are the foot soldiers to the evil.
Yes.
Like the evil villains run the show and they're always going to get paid. But so the billions of dollars that was defrauded out of the COVID relief is pennies to them. So they don't care. But the reason it was so easy to defraud is because it's being run by idiots.
Fantastic. Based on dozens of interviews with residents and civilians, the report focuses on night raids. I already read that part. Afghan forces had, we did that, mistaken identity, poor intelligence. One quote in the report told investigators that Afghan forces had killed one of his sons and detained another during a shock raid because they had provided food to Taliban insurgents. The forces accused us, why are you feeding the Taliban? He said, but the Taliban come asking for food. If you don't feed them, they harass you. Oh, well, you get one between the eyes then.
But well, a big surprise, like fucking, whether they actually killed someone for not giving them food or not. It's like guys with guns show up and say, hey, we'd really like some food and we're from your village. Oh, okay, here's some food. Like,
what are you going to do?
What do you want them to do?
Somebody put a gun to my head and told me to feed them, so I did. Oh, well, we're going to kill you. So it's oh man. So this is and then they're specific here, and I went to the actual report at the Human Rights Watch .org. In March 2018, Afghan paramilitary forces raided the home of a staff member of an Afghan non-governmental agency, an NGO. The forces arrived late at night and the family compound and separated the women from the men. They singled out the staff member's brother and took him to another part of the house. They shot him, leaving the body, and left with another male family member whom the government later denied holding.
Were these the ones that were digging bullets out of people they killed because they didn't want to show they didn't want U.S. military bullets inside the people they'd murdered? Because I know that was in Afghanistan. I don't know if it was this group or another one.
I don't know that it was. Wow, that's a great quote. Wow. That's a great question. I don't know.
Anyway. We, along with our war crimes, added to the list.
Added to the list of war crimes. And just going back, kind of the history of it, right? Search operations Afghan villagers to kill or capture insurgents conducted at night have long raised controversy in Afghanistan because they frequently harm civilians and civilian property. Nonetheless, There has been a sharp increase in these operations since late 2017. So this report came out in 2019. So we, even though we're like, these night raids aren't good, ramp them up. And it almost kind of sounds like, what else does that sound like? No knock warrants. Just kick the door in and do whatever you want. Only we even have more reckless impunity in these war zones because there's really no oversight at all. There's nothing. There's not going to be, an Afghan Lives Matter protest over there. And for what the media wouldn't cover it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is when you go in and create a failed state in a country that was already struggling, there's not a lot of CCTV to solve the crimes.
No, just do whatever you want.
By the way, real quick, I looked it up, and yes, I'm referring to a different incident in 2010, or different time at least in 2010, when U.S. Special Operations Forces were killing some folks in Afghanistan and digging the bullets out of their bodies to hide what had happened.
That's not barbaric at all or crazy. That's totally normal. Like
they say cleanliness is next to godliness, and I can
it sounds
it's clean.
To me it sounds like a really good recycle program.
Yeah. Exactly.
God, I can't believe I made that joke. That's so horrifying.
Graham, for those listening at home, Graham seemed offended by his own joke.
As I was saying it, I'm like, that's too offensive. Like, hey, come on, dude, is what the conversation I was having in my head.
I've seen him look offended at a lot of my jokes. That was the first time one of his own.
As I'm saying it, I was getting offended. So literally my brain was going, dude, this is a great joke. And the other part was like, it's too offensive.
You're an internal censor.
My internal censor was like, don't say it's bad. I don't care if it's well written. It's just too offensive. In 2017, in a departure from previous policy, the U.S. authorized Afghan special forces, including these paramilitary units, to call in airstrikes. So not only were we just going in night raids, we could just indiscriminately call in airstrikes, including these paramilitary units, to call in airstrikes for support, even without U.S. forces present to identify the targets.
Jesus.
So what could go wrong if you don't have credible intel on an airstrike? You just shoot and just hope it lands. You'll be fine, right? Let's throw it up against the wall, see what sticks, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not like that. I mean, what are the odds of hitting civilians? I mean, pretty much everybody in Afghanistan is a murderous terrorist. Yeah, yes. So that's
why when 90% of victims were unintended targets, which was a polite way of saying Bush, Obama, and Trump and Biden just killed a lot of innocent civilians. Yeah,
unintended targets is innocent civilians.
It's an unintended target.
Mm-hmm. I heard an even better euphemism for that. They've moved beyond unintended targets and now they call them secondary targets. To make it sound like they are still targets.
Yeah, they're still targets.
But they're not.
It wasn't my main one, but we got something. And we're just again, like you said, everyone's guilty over there.
If they weren't, why would we kill them?
They shouldn't have died then. If they only innocent people wouldn't die. It's just like, why did he run? The cops came because guys with badges and guns who've killed a bunch of his friends were running at him. That's why he ran.
Right.
While a decreased U.S. ground presence and reliance on local Afghan intelligence sources has meant that there's less information available about the possible presence of civilians in those areas. And it's funny because, again, America's double standard on war crimes. The Taliban forces have frequently committed violations of the laws of war and human rights abuses, including indiscriminate attacks that have killed and injured civilians, as well as using civilians as shield. Afghan National Defense and Security Forces officials and their U.S. counterparts contended that night raids backed by air operations are necessary in a war in which insurgent forces deploy among the civilian population. So again, it's like you say, it's secondary card. We just kill a bunch of civilians. Some of them are guilty. So we'll be all right.
Well, and you also notice the double standard here where we basically say, and we do this when we're talking about Israel-Palestine as well, we say, oh, well, they're within the regular population. So therefore, and with Palestine, they're talking about people throwing rocks, but So therefore, we can just bomb everyone because the Taliban is in there somewhere. And so we use that as a defense when we're bombing. But you look at Russia, Ukraine, and they go, well, Russia bombed that area to try and hit the Azov battalion or whatever, but there were civilians there, so they're killing civilians. Now, I agree with that take. How about we have no war? How about killing how about killing a single innocent civilian is fucking wrong? But the thing is, we don't use that to apply to our own disgusting wars. Only Russia.
Right, only Russia. And even in that instance, are we investigating, because there are some reports, they're not being reported in the US, that maybe the Azov, that potentially the Azov brigade is putting civilian shields and making people stay in buildings so that when the Russia bombs them, they say, oh, we're bombing civilians.
Yeah, I would imagine it is a mix of the two, that Russia is not intentionally bombing any civilian targets, but that Azov battalion, kicks everyone out of a hospital and uses the hospital as a fortress, and then the hospital is bombed, and maybe they kill mostly fucking Nazis, but they probably also kill some innocent civilians because that's how bombing works. And then we run around and say, oh, they're just bombing hospitals because it's fun. And it's like, no, I think it's the other option, that they're bombing, trying to hit the enemy, but they're killing innocent civilians in that path. And that's why I'm opposed to all wars.
Yeah, I'm opposed to all wars. I know, it's like all wars are awful. And then you listen to some general on C-SPAN a couple of days ago was like, well, this probably war is going to drag on. And you just heard all of the defense contractors stand up and start clapping. Yay. Cause that's what
that's what they wanted. That's what they want. I said from day one, the U.S. wants this to go on forever.
They just want this to be like, oh, and there's just another front and another war. And just,
and they're telling Zelensky to never sit down and actually try and create some sort of peace.
Yeah. And I don't know, like you and I have discussed, the only hope I have, well, these two things I'm hoping happen is, first of all, like Western Europe is still like, well, we're still going to buy oil from Russia because we need it. And that Zelensky realizes, and maybe even somebody like Germany back channels with Russia and says, just, hey, Putin, pull out. You guys get the Donbass region. They're not going to join NATO. And we're all kind of done with America. Like that's what I'm hoping happens. And I think there's some that could happen just because everyone's fed up with us swinging our economic dicks in their face. Like everybody's tired of that. And I think that the fact that we're forcing Germany and Western Europe to buy more expensive American oil, I think they're going to go, no.
Right. And in the larger picture, this could spell the end of the U.S. petrodollar central banking kind of monopoly over the most of the world.
Yeah, because even our allies are fed up with us. They're not going to say, they're just kind of waiting for an opportunity to go, we're done. We're done. Not to mention China and Russia and India are all like, these three massive economies and countries are like,
Yeah, and they're creating. I mean, the U.S. is a dwindling empire, late stage capitalist. We've exploited all the resources, and now we're trying to continue our stranglehold on the world. And these other countries are growing in a massive way, and China and Russia are creating a system outside of the SWIFT code system, and that could spell the end for the petrodollar, which or even just make it so that it's a subsect of many different reserve currencies, right. Which for the world is greatly positive.
Yes, it is. I think so. Anyway, I could just read about more specific horrific things that we did, but that's what one of the just not small, but one of the many things awful that we did, that the CIA specifically did in Afghanistan in a 20-year war that we spent $3.5 trillion on. 4 presidents from 2 political parties did this, and we have made the country worse without a shadow of a doubt. And we killed a bunch of innocent people along the way.
But Graham, you're ignoring the fact that there are some religious fanatics with guns out there who now have a sand pool that they can do backstroke in. So there are some positives.
Yes, good point. The sand pool is a big upside. The sand pool in the military, a U.S. compound that we built that we can't use. That's really fantastic. The $85 billion in weapons that are now in the hands of the Taliban. That's all good.
There was also a big problem. I think I did an episode on the Afghanistan paper. There was also a big problem, episode of Government Secrets. But there was also a big problem with ghost schools and ghost troops. Now, that sounds much cooler and Game of Thronesy than it is. Ghost schools and ghost troops means that people in an area of Afghanistan where the U.S. military couldn't go very easily would say they're going to build a school and would get all this money and then basically never build it. And then there were Afghan military units where they would say, oh, yeah, we've trained all these soldiers and you're paying us per soldier, so send us the money. And they'd collect all this money and they actually hadn't trained anybody. So there's a big ghost problem in Afghanistan.
Well, hopefully we'll commit some more money to figure out how the Afghani specters are being dealt with. We got to get after those ghosts.
That's what our tax dollars are paying for. In the U.S., our tax dollars do not go to U.S. schools as they collapse around because public schools collapse around the country, but they go to fake schools in Afghanistan. That should make you, if you're anybody listening or watching this and you have kids and the public schools are like, oh, they're cutting funding for this, and this. Just know that there's fake schools that are getting a lot of really good money they're really doing good work out there, teaching fake children, fake ghost stuff. So it's really, America always is giving its money in the right place. My kid's recorder is just a stick that he's supposed to blow on. But meanwhile, there's some very rich guy in Afghanistan pretending to have a school.
Yeah, it's great. We should set up our own government secret school and see if we can just get some funding. I think that's what I'm going to try to do. That's my goal for 2022 is to just figure out as many ways to just scam the government out of money just for fake things. All right.
I'm at this point, I'm all for it.
The two most censored comedians in America, ladies and gentlemen, Lee Camp and Grab Elwood. And now, Government Secret Segment number 2, World War I, Part 4.
There was a lot of numbers in that intro. So let's move on. We were basically at the end of World War I, and they'd signed the treaties. Wilson got basically nothing that he had wanted because the U.S. showed up in the last 6 months, and he was a weird religious racist dude. And so, but at the end of it, he still gushed that at least the world knows America is the savior of the world. He argued that the United States needed to ratify the treaty so that it could join the League of Nations, which was the only way it could rectify the problems. Progressives. Oh, and I think, as I said in the last episode, we never do ultimately join the League of Nations, which was the only way it was. So progressives like Senators La Follette, Norris, and Johnson denounced Wilson's proposed international body as a league of imperialists bent on defeating revolutions and defending their own imperial designs. Because, he's saying, we need a League of Nations to create peace. But meanwhile, he and others are saying we've got to go into Russia to stop their revolution, to stop their people from rising up. Now, you may go, well, that didn't work so well if you look at, Stalinism, but this was the beginning of it. You couldn't have known how some psychopaths would ultimately respond, but
it sounds to me like they create this League of Nations thing and then not do it. It's sort of the prequel to the ghost schools in Afghanistan. Just like, let's create a fake thing and, bang our horns about it and then not do it.
Now, I love this part. As someone who has been censored into the ground, and I think you'll appreciate this, Graham, as well. So Wilson's trying to get us to sign on to the treaty and be in the League of Nations, and he did have this high rhetoric of peace, of world peace, no more wars. Wilson's own wartime policy had deprived him of many of his best allies in that pursuit. CPI head Creel, which we discussed in an early episode, He pointed this out to the beleaguered president in 1918, telling him, all the radical or liberal friends of your anti-imperialist war policy were either silenced or intimidated. Basically, everybody who's anti-war that would support you in an anti-war goal, we've like locked up, we've, made them fear arrest if they even like send something in the mail that says they're against the war. We've locked up Eugene Debs. We've basically made it illegal to be anti-war. And here's Wilson going, where are all my anti-war peeps, right?
It's just, they must know the irony in what they're saying. Like, they must be doing it for comedy. Like, they must be like, haha, everyone's in jail. I'm going to go, where's all my like, they must be doing it as a joke. Like, they must, when it's like this current government, when they talk about, war crimes, or we need freedom of press, and they're like smiling, haha, Julian Assange is in jail. Like, they must be aware of what.
Those guys are, they know there's no freedom of press. I mean, they just shut down RT America and banned all of our past content just the other day. So they know there's no freedom of press, but they have to, they say all those slogans that they have. They have a list of slogans. We are the land of the free. Is that, do I get a cheer from the crowd for that?
Do you think the slogans are just like on one of those boards with like the slogans are like magnets, like on somebody's fridge, or you can just like put together like I love walking, or I love, like they just put them together on a bigger fridge magnet thing?
We are, they put, we are the land of slavery, and then they're like, oh wait, does anyone have a no? Are we out of no's? No slave? No. Okay. We're out of no's. All right. We're just going to leave it as land of slavery.
We love torture. Oh wait, can we do an anti instead of love? That's what I figured. They just mishmash them together, and they walk. So whoever puts one up for the day, they walk by and they say them. Like, someone will just put up big tent, and Pelosi sees it and goes, okay, well, the Democratic Party is a big tent. Like she saw it on the big fridge that houses her $10,000 worth of ice cream.
So Wilson watched the treaty and the league go down to defeat, finally falling 7 votes short of ratification because he'd arrested all of the people that might actually support such a thing. The House of Morgan's fingerprints were all over the treaty's economic clauses, as in J.P. Morgan, the House of Morgan. Morgan men were so ubiquitous at the Paris Peace Conference in 1919 that Bernard Baruch grumbled that J.P. Morgan and company were running the show. So in case you were thinking that war might have to do with bankers and banking, that J.P. Morgan was running the peace treaty conference.
The bankers were running the peace, like that. If you made that as a joke, I would laugh because I'd be like, that's outrageous. That's not what, but no, when you read this, you really see, like, we've been living in a clown car since the inception of this country has been a clown car.
Yeah. And unfortunately, in those early days, it was filled with smallpox. So, yeah.
And just smallpox kept getting out of the car. They just kept coming out of it. It was just great. Oh, God. Yeah.
So the bankers were running the show. And I thought this was an interesting point. So this is, I'd like to remind everyone every episode that this is coming from Oliver Stone and Peter Kuznick's The Untold History of the United States. Although the reparations, Germany's reparations, and the war guilt clause created a hostile and unstable environment in post-war Germany, their impacts sometimes have been exaggerated. It is certainly true. So many of the payments were revised downward. So the idea that the U.S. and the others who won the war were, gutted Germany to the point that it created Hitler they're saying it's a bit exaggerated. It's not that Germany wasn't struggling. It's not that they didn't pay reparations, but it's just talked about as maybe more of a cause than it was. They say it is certainly true, however, that Hitler and other right-wing Germans exploited the post-war sense of victimization that came with defeat and Allied retribution. So Hitler was able to use this as a talking point to rally Germany later. Economic, social, and political instability also rocked post-war Italy, where armed fascisti, followers of Benito Mussolini, repeatedly clashed with leftist demonstrators and strikers. And here's the thing is they found some support in the U.S.
No, we started supporting fascists. I find that hard to believe. It's not like we supported Mussolini and Hitler for a while and then went, ooh, I guess this is bad. This is bad PR. We'll go against them.
Richard Child, Warren G. Harding's ambassador to Italy, and other embassy officials downplayed Mussolini's right-wing extremism, extolling instead his anti-Bolshevism and willingness to use strong-arm methods to defeat labor. So they were like, this guy's pretty great. You should see what he does to striking workers. All right? You should fucking see. He just sends people out to break their legs. Why have we not tried that? I didn't think it only just occurred to me now. Knees break rather easily.
It's like Starbucks just brought Howard Schultz back after 13 stores just voted to unionize. And he literally have you seen that speech where he's like, we got to stop this union thing. We got to bust unions.
No, I didn't.
Oh yeah. He just gave this flat out speech where he's like, we're going to bust up unions. And I bet you in his PowerPoint presentation was X handles, maybe we bring these back, Well,
Starbucks especially, it might be a little tougher with Amazon, but Starbucks especially, it's so easy for them to close and move shops. I assume every store that unionizes, they just close it.
Well, the problem is it's just starting. It's definitely a domino effect, and every little Starbucks is starting to go union.
That is funny how when workers stand up and exert their rights and show power, it becomes kind of contagious.
That's weird.
You're saying they don't like that.
No, Howard Schultz does not like that.
You're saying the CEO of Starbucks is not a fan.
I mean, that guy, I'm sure, will bring in goddamn ISIS to break the unions if he has to. He doesn't care.
His motto was ISIS and ice picks. That's
the new ISIS iced coffee. That's going to be his.
Yeah. That's how we deal with the union. U.S. support continued even after Mussolini's imposition of a fascist dictatorship. Mussolini's defenders included American business leaders, big surprise, like Secretary of the Treasury Andrew Mellon, Thomas Lamont of J.P. Morgan, and Ralph Easley of the National Civic Federation. Wow, it's so fascinating that the heads of U.S. corporate America liked fascism.
The heads of corporate America would literally line up with anyone if it thought it would make them more money. Literally, if they're the Jeffrey Dahmer guy actually could move our stock numbers up a little bit, they would line up, maybe we just downplay the boiling of the heads, but really it could help get moving the numbers in the right direction. They are the most soulless.
Right. And anything that will undercut worker power, worker rights, that's all good.
Anything.
All good.
Anything. They will literally do anything.
It's almost like all wars are class wars.
No. Yes. Always.
And yes.
Yeah, yes, they absolutely are. This is God, these guys are such assholes.
World War I marked the end of European dominance and the ascendancy of the U.S. and Japan, the war's two real victors. New York replaced London as the center of world finance. The war proved that controlling oil supplies was central to projecting and exercising power. Britain's Lord Curzon pronounced soon after the armistice that, quote, the Allied cause had floated to victory upon a wave of oil. The U.S. was key to that victory, having met 80% of the Allies' wartime petroleum needs. But once the war ended, oil companies were poised to grab whatever new oil-rich territories they could. So, oil dominance had really grown a lot in World War I.
Again, this story about an empire in a region losing dominance because of a war, I feel like we're hearing that somewhere else. Where else? Like, did we even talk about it on this show today about a conflict where a big superpower is trying to keep its petrodollar control over everybody and people are lining? It's almost like,
Yeah, actually, where was I? Oh, maybe I can cover that next week or soon. Is the actual origin of the petrodollar, the deal with Saudi Arabia and others that made the petrodollar a thing.
Oh, it was probably born out of some goddamn demonic ceremony where they just like boiled a kitten's head and like drank it, and then they came up with the idea for the petrodollar.
You were close. I think they came in the kitten's head. But you were very close. I mean, I'll give you like 3 out of 5 points for that.
I knew I was close. I knew there was something about murdering a kitten. I knew there was some evil thing that they did.
But yes, you described Bretton Woods very precisely. Royal Dutch Shell trained its sights on Venezuela, where General Juan Vicente Gomez's government offered friendly, stable conditions that seemed much more hospitable than the ongoing volatility and declining production in Mexico. U.S. companies soon joined the competition of Venezuelan oil. Gomez, as a cruel, cunning, and avaricious dictator who for 27 years ruled Venezuela for his personal enrichment. Gomez essentially made the country, quote, his private hacienda, as he amassed a personal fortune estimated at $200 million and land holdings of 20 million acres. So maybe that's why Venezuela is like not so keen on giving in to the U.S. puppet government shit again, because they saw 27 years of U.S. puppet dictator.
Just ruining their land, ruining the people. It's weird that when Chavez came to power, he, nationalized the oil and gave the people, mainly the like Afro-Venezuelans, not the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Venezuelans, he gave them a bunch of money and power and schools, and he empowered his own people. And that's when suddenly out of nowhere, it was like George W. Bush called him a part of the axis of. I remember watching the news and it was like Iraq, Iran, and Venezuela. I'm like, what? Venezuela? What did they do?
Yeah, what do you call them? The troika of tyranny.
Yes, the troika of tyranny. Like, he didn't know what that word meant. He did not know what that
meant. Yeah, I remember doing a video on how college, you can get free college in Venezuela. And someone commented beneath, it was like, hi, I'm in Venezuela. I went to college here, and it's not, you're wrong. It's not actually free. There is a cost of roughly $1 a semester. So there you go, Graham. I was completely wrong, and I honestly got to retract the whole video.
I'm surprised that's not like at the top of your Wikipedia page. Lee Camp lied about free college in Venezuela, paid by Putin to lie. Like, never lived in New York because he was too busy lying about Venezuelan college.
So, dictator Gomez in Venezuela, his detractors faced harsh persecution. U.S. Chargé d'Affaires John Campbell White reported that prisoners in Venezuela were treated with medieval severity, and the U.S. was always ready to step in if needed. In 1923, the U.S. sent a special service squadron to the country as a show of support in response to what turned out to be unfounded rumors of an impending revolution. We were that ready to block a revolution that might get in the way of our dictator that was giving us all the oil.
Boy, we should celebrate all of the evil dictators that America has propped up and just turned a blind eye to. Like, literally.
And to this day, we give aid, quote unquote, aid to 70% of the world's dictators.
Like, if you're a young sociopath who wants to take over your country, it's real simple. Just give America whatever it wants, and you
just our phones are always open.
Yeah, just
give us a call.
Give us a call. Whatever research you have, minerals for something we need. Do you have a strategic? Will you let a bait? They will just let America do whatever it wants, and you can literally be the most evil, ruthless, bloodthirsty psycho, and we will not care at all. If you change your mind, then please see Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi. Like, please.
The phones are open now. Give us a call. 1-800-FUCK your people. Just call right now. We'll give away free. We have free beer cozies that go with it that say "fuck your people."
We'll give you weapons to torture your people with. You get it all. Just call 1-800-AMERICA.
Operators standing by.
We can't wait to help you torture your people.
They're standing by because we won't give them chairs, because all the tax dollars have been sent to murder people in other countries.
And if they complain, we beat them and fire them and throw them in jail.
So the oil companies reaped massive profits in Venezuela. Oil company workers in the environment fared less well. Bills fared less well.
Yeah, you fared a little less well. I love that.
Spills and accidents occurred frequently. One oil well blowout in 1922 spread 22 miles, releasing nearly 1 million barrels of oil into Lake Maracaibo. Gomez and his family and hangers-on bought up the choice properties and then sold them to foreign companies, accumulating vast fortunes for themselves and their leader, while their countrymen remained mired in poverty. In the process, Venezuelan oil production jumped from 1.4 million barrels in 1921 to 137 million in 1929, trailing only the U.S. in total output and first worldwide in exports. Of the three companies dominating the Venezuelan market, two were American-owned, Gulf and Pan American, which had been purchased in 1925 by Standard Oil. So I bet you didn't know we have a bit of a history in Venezuela.
Oh, man. That's why, yeah, Maduro, yeah. I love, too, how, Venezuela, I believe has like the #1 oil reserves in the world.
Yeah, something like that.
Since they won't play ball with us, that's when we put in Juan Guaido. But then when the Russia-Ukraine thing happened and we needed oil.
And by put in Juan Guaido, you mean just announced a random dude was president of Venezuela.
Yeah, hey, they just went, dude, just stand up and say you're president.
Yeah, just stand up and say I'm president. Just do that.
I'm president.
It would basically be like, remember the QAnon shaman with the horns who stood at the top of the Senate during January 6th?
Yeah.
It'd be like other countries just saying, yep, he's president now. He did it.
The guy that's pissed off they shut down Burning Man, he's president now.
Yep. So
all right.
They then go on to talk about other U.S. involvement in Latin America. And The Nation magazine, which existed way back then in the 1920s, said, quote, there are or were 20 independent republics to the south of us. 5 at least, Cuba, Panama, Haiti, Santo Domingo, and Nicaragua, have already been reduced to the status of colonies with at most a degree of rather fictitious self-government. 4 more, so this is before, obviously, the Cuban Revolution. 4 more, Guatemala, Honduras, Costa Rica, and Peru, appear to be in process of reduction to the same status. Mr. Hughes is not treating Mexico as a sovereign, independent state. How far is this to go? Is the U.S. to create a great empire in this hemisphere, an empire over which Congress and the American people exercise no authority, an empire ruled by a group of Wall Street bankers at whose disposal the state and Navy departments graciously place their resources? These are the questions which the people, the plain people whose sons die of tropic fever or of a patriot's bullet, have a right to ask. So, yeah, The Nation was kind of summing up our view and efforts in Latin America.
Did they put a photo of then the Easter Bunny getting fucked in the ass by Santa Claus at that moment?
I believe so, yeah.
Artist rendering.
Far from having become isolationist following the Great War, the U.S. found more effective ways than warfare to expand its empire. Yeah, basically we stopped focusing on bombing and owning countries. In that regard, we just own them economically and kind of put in puppet governments to give us the things we wanted without having to invade. Usually. Not always, but usually. Wilson, while supporting self-determination and opposing formal empire, he intervened repeatedly in other nations' internal affairs, including Russia, Mexico, and throughout Central America. While encouraging reform, he maintained a deep mistrust of the kind of fundamental and at times revolutionary change that would actually improve people's lives. While championing social justice, he believed that property rights were sacrosanct and must never be infringed upon. Though endorsing human brotherhood, he believed that non-whites were inferior and resegregated the federal government. While extolling democracy and the rule of law, he oversaw egregious abuses of civil liberties. While condemning imperialism, he sanctioned the maintenance of the global imperial order. And while proclaiming a just, non-punitive peace, he acquiesced in a harsh, retributive peace that inadvertently helped create the preconditions for the rise of Hitler and the Nazis. Thus, the war would have consequences that went far beyond the horrors on the battlefield. The U.S. never joined the League of Nations, rendering that body impotent in the face of fascist aggression in the 1930s. The end.
Who knew? That's why, folks, that's why you come to this show. That's why you listen to Government Secrets, to find out that even something like World War I was really way more horrible than you thought. And it created a template, a roadmap, if you will, for America to become even more bigger and evil. So,
yeah, and even the war we were like the big war we were kind of least involved in, didn't get actually involved until the last 6 months. It shows how we were a heavy presence, and we actually used it to kind of create new forms of warfare, economic warfare, oil warfare. So yeah,
we really realized, boy, this is how we can really screw things up. I mean, literally, you see why they had to kill Kennedy, because everyone before him, maybe except with the exception of FDR, and then everyone since, like anybody that wanted to do actual good things, good governance, let democracy actually flourish like they promise it will, is always completely hamstringed by the capitalists. They're the worst. They're the worst people. They're horrible people. They're awful. Their children are awful. They're just horrible, soulless, maggot-ridden fuckfaces, and they should be exterminated from this planet like the diseased rats that they are. Speaking of diseased rats, folks, go to liberapay.com government secrets and support what we do.
If you want to hear more about diseased rats, then no, but it's it's why I enjoy this show. I get to learn what the fuck faces are up to. So
yeah, it is. It's funny. We both learn what they're up to and
what they've been up to for 200, 300 years.
200, yeah, exactly. At least 200 years. They've been doing this a long time. We want to think like, oh, the corporations just jumped in a couple decades ago. Oh, no. And the CIA, which I obviously cover a lot on this show, is just the more recent. They really realized we create this sole organization that has to answer to no one, gets endless money. We'll just let them run wild, and will do all this stuff on our behalf so that we can they're not checked, they're not monitored, they're heavily funded, they can try insane stuff, and no one will call them on it, and they can, and like you see the precursor, like going through this 4-segment piece, this 4-part piece on World War I, you're like, wow, they really were starting to like learn how we can do this and be a big empire and like get our money. Like they were really like figuring it out.
And JP Morgan was kind of owning the US government and then kind of owning the chess pieces of World War I. They were the biggest, lender to Britain. Like Britain wouldn't have been able to keep operating without them. They were running the peace treaty meetings. Like, yeah, it's a banker's world, man.
The fact that banks were running a peace treaty is just like, it's fantastic. It's like drug cartels, running an at-risk youth facility or something. Like, just it's unbelievable. Like that they, and the audacity and they get away with it. They just always get away with it.
Not anymore. Not as long as this show has something to say about it.
Yeah.
They got away with it until
government secret show.
2 years ago when we started it. What, a year and a half? I don't know how long it's been. Maybe it's been a month.
Wasn't it summer of 2021 we started doing it?
No, 2020.
Summer 2020.
2020.
Yeah, dude, it's coming up on 2 years.
Yeah. And when we started, you were monetized. I had a job. It was a different world.
It was a whole nother. Oh God. Yeah. You were monetized and you had a job. That's good. It's been a fun 2 years. Yeah.
I think I remember I called you up and I said, Graham, would you like to do a podcast that will upend both our lives? And you were like, I am down.
Let's do this. You're like, this conceivably will be the end of you making real money on YouTube. And I will be then wiped off the face of the internet and just be known. Do you want to do this, buddy? And I said, yes. But
and you said, as long as everything's fine with my Nissan Leaf, then I am in.
I mean, my Nissan Leaf is basically indestructible, Lee, just like the show and my YouTube monetization and Redacted Tonight. So let's move forward on government secrets.
Lee, nothing could stop your show, just like nothing can stop my Nissan Leaf. Yeah.
The Iron Tank of Redacted Tonight and the Nissan Leaf will forge ahead with the triumphant flag of government secrets at our crest. Yeah. So I don't know what year 3 is going to bring about. I'm really cautious to guess. I don't know what's going to happen.
Why do I feel like at some point we'll be doing this show and you'll have a black bag over your head?
Yeah. Somehow at Gitmo, they'll still let me do this show.
Yeah. Like, they'll be like, we're going to let you do the show, but you got to stay at Gitmo. Yeah.
Yeah, you just got to stay at Gitmo. I go, guys, can we just do it, Fridays at 6 o'clock Eastern? Because I believe Gitmo's on Eastern time zone. So that still works out.
And then they'll say 6:15. And then you'll go, that's when I show up anyway.
And then they'll waterboard me, but it'll be with vegan smoothies. So I'll be like, well, this is not bad to be waterboarded with vegan smoothies.
You'll be like, it sucks I don't get to surf anymore, but waterboarding is a close second. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, year 3 of government secrets just going to be fantastic.
So everybody, I'm at patreon.com/Lee Camp. All my stuff is over there. And you can get Graham's stuff at
GrahamElwood.com, where you can support my Patreon, my Rockfin. And Rockfin's great because Lee and I and everybody, a lot of good people are on it. And I've got tour dates coming up. If you go to GrahamElwood.com, sign up for my newsletter, and you get a free smoothie recipe. I will be in Chicago, April 14th through the 16th at the Zanies in Rosemont. I will be in Burbank with Ron Placone, Mary Lynn Rice Cub will be on that show as well. And that is April 28th, April 29th, and 30th. I'm in Ventura, California, the Ventura Harbor Comedy Club, a club you and I performed at. You were headlining there once, and I did a set on that show. which is fun. And Ron and I just added, bringing our tour back. July 29th, we're in Seattle, and July 30th, we're in Vancouver, Canada, and we will be adding Portland soon. So all those tour dates are at grahamelwood.com. And of course, support this show at liberapay.com/government secrets.
Nice. I hope the tour goes well.
Yes. And Lee and I are going to be talking and planning more of doing some government secrets in Europe in September.
There are talks underway. JP Morgan is running them.
JP Morgan the tour is going to be sponsored by JP Morgan Chase and Raytheon. So it's going to be very good. Some of the topics are just going to change a little bit to, wow, listen to these unions causing all this trouble like that. That's the topics will change.
Yeah. It's going to be a lot of, listen, guys, don't join a union unless you want to have to pay them money.
Socialism kills. That'll be our next segments. Once we go on the JP Morgan Chase tour, that'll be.
All right, man. See you next week.
All right, buddy. Have a good weekend.
Later.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. We are still in our 9th month of demonetization from YouTube. So support what we're doing at patreon.com/GrahamElwood or rockfin.com/GrahamElwood, which is a blockchain cryptocurrency platform. It's free to sign up, and there's a premium level at $10 a month. And for that, you get everybody on the platform's premium content. Myself, Lee Camp, Ron Placone, Jimmy Dore, Whitney Webb, Kim Iverson, Abby Martin, and many, many others. You can also support what we're doing at Venmo at Graham-Elwood and go to GrahamElwood.com. We have a PayPal button and a PO box. I also have crypto wallets, which are all in the show notes. Thanks for supporting what we do.